What would you do if the man who vowed to love you forever brought another woman to your event and acted like you never existed? That's exactly what Naomi Bell Rowan faced. No warning, no apology, no explanation, just betrayal, bold and unapologetic. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She packed her bags. And she vanished. Have you ever stayed silent while your heart broke? Watched someone you trusted slowly become a stranger? Have you ever loved someone so much you let them destroy you quietly? Naomi did, until one moment shattered the illusion and she chose herself. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about grace, growth, and what happens when the woman they took for granted finally walks away. Naomi was raised to believe in partnership. She believed in loyalty, in showing up, in working through tough seasons. But loyalty without respect is slavery in disguise. She had stood beside Tristan Rowan, America's most admired young billionaire CEO, for nearly a decade. They were college sweethearts, a power couple in every magazine. He built his empire with brilliance. She supported him with elegance. But behind closed doors, their perfect marriage was crumbling like old plaster. Would you have stayed? Would you have fought harder? Or would you have done what Naomi did, walk away while carrying a child no one knew about? Because what Tristan didn't realize was that Naomi wasn't just leaving a man. She was choosing peace. For her. For the baby growing inside her. And one day, he would walk into a small cafe in Savannah and see a little boy with dimples that mirrored his own. By then, it would be too late to rewrite the beginning. But maybe, just maybe, he'd have the chance to fight for a better ending. Naomi stood alone at the top of the ballroom stairs. The air was heavy with perfume, champagne, and whispers. The elite of the tech world gathered below. Investors, reporters, photographers, board members. Every eye turned as she descended the staircase in her champagne-colored gown. A designer masterpiece, soft silk, fitted waist, classy slit. But she wasn't here to impress. She was here because she was expected. Beside her, there was no Tristan. No arm wrapped around her waist. No familiar whisper of "you look beautiful tonight." She already knew where he was. Everyone did. Across the room, near the center display of awards and corporate banners, stood Tristan Rowan, tall, composed, exuding wealth like it was part of his scent. And next to him, Cleo, the woman his board had warned him about. Younger, flashier, known in public relations circles for being good at two things: flipping narratives and seducing power. She clung to his arm like she belonged there, and he let her. Naomi paused at the last step, straightened her shoulders, let the silence fill the space between them. She didn't rush. She didn't fumble. A camera flashed. And still, he didn't look at her. He looked at Cleo, smiling. It wasn't the cheating that broke her. It was the public erasure. It was the way he stopped seeing her, even when she was right there, glowing with the life of their child inside her. No one in the room noticed Naomi's clenched jaw, her slow, controlled breathing. But inside her, something died, and something else took root. Back at their penthouse, Naomi didn't cry. She didn't smash the glass vases she once hand-picked for their anniversary. She didn't call him. She opened her closet, pulled out 2 designer suitcases, one for clothes, the other for memories, photo albums, her sketch pad, her late mother's Bible, and a small orange bottle of prenatal vitamins. She hadn't told him yet. She never got the chance. But now, she wouldn't give him the honor. Naomi left him a note on the nightstand. "Don't worry about the cameras. This isn't a scandal. It's a beginning, for me." She left her wedding ring on top of it, and with one final look at the life she had once begged to preserve, she walked out. No driver, no assistant, no press, just silence. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Naomi was 2 states away, checking into a small rental house in Savannah under her mother's maiden name, Naomi Walker. She didn't post a goodbye, didn't answer calls, didn't alert friends. She cut off everything that once tied her to him. In Savannah, she started freelance design work, walked the beach barefoot in the mornings, ate mangoes with her feet propped up, and soft jazz playing in the background. She attended prenatal checkups alone. Her baby kicked during ultrasounds, and with every heartbeat, Naomi whispered, "You will never feel unwanted. You will never be made to feel small." Tristan released a press statement. "My wife is dealing with personal exhaustion and has taken some time for herself." He bought column space to spin the story. He smiled with Cleo at gallery events. He flew her to Paris for the launch of his new VC fund, but none of it filled the silence Naomi left behind. The apartment felt colder. The music no longer sounded the same. Her teacups sat unused in the cabinet, and every time he opened their bedroom door, he expected to see her back turned toward him, reading in bed. But there was only emptiness. One night, he walked into the walk-in closet. All her shoes were gone, except one pair of flats on the bottom shelf. He picked them up, and that's when it hit him. She wasn't coming back. CEO's mistress spotted with rival investor at yacht party. He laughed at first. Then he didn't, because now he saw Cleo for what she really was, an echo of a life he never truly wanted. And in that moment, he remembered Naomi's last words to him from months ago. "You always told me I was your piece, but you treated me like your placeholder." This is not the story of a broken woman chasing answers. This is the story of a woman who became the answer to her own pain. She left. She rebuilt. She found peace in solitude, strength in motherhood, power in her own name. But fate had one more chapter to write, because 6 months later, in a quiet cafe tucked away on a rainy street in Savannah, a billionaire would walk in and lock eyes with the little boy he never knew existed. Long before she vanished without a trace, Naomi Bell was known on campus as the girl with the kind eyes, the one who tutored without judging, who smiled even when no one was watching. She carried herself like someone raised on dignity, not money, not clout, just self-respect and softness. She met Tristan Rowan in the last semester of sophomore year. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. He was brilliant, ambitious, and terrifyingly focused. Most people avoided him, not because he was cruel, but because he didn't make room for small talk or silliness. His eyes were always 10 years ahead, until Naomi asked him a question during a library group study. "Why do you act like you're already CEO of something?" He looked up, blinking, slightly caught off guard. "Because I will be," she smiled. "You're missing the present." He didn't smile back, but he remembered her. The second time they met, he was standing in the rain without an umbrella, talking on the phone in sharp, clipped tones. Naomi had just come out of her work-study shift. Her curls were flattened by the drizzle, but she had an extra umbrella in her tote. She walked over and handed it to him without a word. He looked at her again, really looked. "You always give strangers umbrellas?" "No," she said. "Just future CEOs with no common sense." That was the first time he smiled at her. From there, their story began, not with grand gestures or Instagram-perfect moments, but with study sessions that turned into long walks, with coffee runs, with shared silences. She taught him how to slow down. He showed her how to dream big without apologizing for it. They were different, but compatible in a way that made others envy what they had. Tristan would win pitch competitions, while Naomi sat in the front row with her soft claps and proud eyes. She didn't need the spotlight. He didn't need the noise. He once told her, "I'm building something bigger than anyone can see right now, but I only want to do it with you." She believed him. By senior year, he had already landed seed funding for a startup incubator, and with it came long nights, skipped dates, and business trips. Naomi, ever graceful, supported him quietly. When her friends warned her, "Don't let him become your whole life," she shrugged. "He's not my life. He's part of my future." They graduated. He proposed 2 months later with a private dinner and a single diamond ring he said he picked himself. "I don't want anyone else sharing this journey," he said. "It has to be you." She said yes. It was the easiest yes of her life. Their wedding was small, classy, white orchids, jazz quartet, no influencers, no fuss. Naomi wore an off-shoulder gown and walked down the aisle like she was walking into her destiny. Tristan's vows were short, steady, and clear. I'll build the empire. You'll keep it warm. We'll be unstoppable. At the time, she thought it was romantic. She didn't realize that warm was code for silent, invisible, uncredited. But that clarity would come much later. For now, they were newlyweds in a glass condo overlooking the skyline. Mornings were filled with shared routines, coffee, calendar syncing, forehead kisses. Evenings were filled with laptop screens, muted affection, and takeout containers. He worked. She waited. At first, it felt noble. Then, it started to feel lonely. Naomi tried to build her own lane. She picked up clients for freelance design. She ran digital rebrands for non-profits and small boutiques. She launched a blog about intentional living. Tristan reposted it once on LinkedIn and said, "Proud of my wife for staying creative." Staying creative. Like it was a hobby. Like she was a side project. She didn't complain. She told herself, he meant well. He was busy, overwhelmed, and trying to scale a company into a household name. She knew what she signed up for. She could handle it. Or so she thought. The first time she felt invisible was at a board dinner. They had flown to San Diego for a weekend of meetings and networking. Naomi wore a navy dress he liked and sat beside him while the men around them discussed partnerships and projections. No one asked for her opinion. No one asked her anything at all. Halfway through dessert, Tristan excused himself to take a call. He didn't return for 45 minutes. When he came back, he smelled faintly of expensive perfume that wasn't hers. She didn't ask. She didn't want to hear a lie. Instead, she smiled for the camera when the hostess came around. She looked perfect, but something inside her fractured. A month later, Naomi suggested therapy. Not because something's broken, she said, but because we're shifting. Tristan didn't even glance up from his laptop. I don't have time to sit around and talk about feelings. We're fine. You're just overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. She nodded, took that word, folded it into the pocket of her heart. She didn't bring it up again. The romance faded like paint on an old fence. Slowly. Subtly. Without drama. There were still date nights, carefully scheduled and often rescheduled. He still brought home flowers, usually lilies from the same place his assistant ordered. They still laughed, sometimes. But the warmth was gone. They talked logistics, not dreams. Schedules, not stories. Tristan started traveling more. Naomi started sleeping with the window open, just to feel something different. She kept a journal again, something she hadn't done since college. In it, she wrote, "Today he kissed me, but his mind was somewhere else. I miss the version of him that knew my laugh without needing a reminder. I'm not angry. I'm just slowly turning into wallpaper." When she started feeling tired, she didn't think much of it. Between work, charity board meetings, and planning his company's anniversary gala, fatigue felt normal. But one morning, she woke up nauseous. The smell of coffee made her gag. Her skin felt sensitive. She couldn't focus. She bought a pregnancy test on impulse. She stared at it on the bathroom counter for nearly an hour before she found the courage to take it. 2 lines. Clear, bold, positive. She placed a hand over her stomach. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from something softer. Joy, shock, possibility, a baby, their baby. Maybe this would bring them back together. Maybe this was a new beginning. She rehearsed telling him 3 times. First in the mirror, then in the kitchen, then in the car. But each time she tried to speak, he was glued to his phone. Talking numbers, talking meetings, talking IPOs and stakeholder drama. That night, at the dinner table, she finally said, "Tristan, I have something to tell you." He didn't look up. "Can it wait? Cleo just pulled something shady with the branding team. I need to fix it before the board finds out." Cleo. He said her name too often lately. Naomi bit her tongue, swallowed her news, stared at her husband, so close, yet already gone. That night, she sat alone in the guest room and placed a hand over her belly. "I don't know what kind of father he'll be," she whispered, "but I promise I'll be a mother who protects your peace." She didn't cry. She just shut off a switch inside herself. 2 weeks later came the gala, the moment that changed everything. But before that came one final journal entry. He doesn't even see me anymore. I walk past him like a ghost in a silk robe. This love used to be loud. Now it barely whispers. If I vanished, I'm not sure he'd notice. But when I leave, I'll make sure he never forgets I was here. The night of the gala arrived like a storm Naomi had already braced herself for. She stood in front of her full-length mirror, smoothing the champagne gown Tristan's stylist had picked out weeks ago. The dress fit like a second skin, elegant, timeless, the kind of look that drew attention without trying. But she didn't feel beautiful. She felt hollow. Her makeup was flawless. Hair pulled into a soft, low bun, earrings delicate enough to whisper class. Yet no one had asked her how she felt today. Not even her husband. Naomi had called him earlier. Twice. No answer. She sent a message. "What time will you be arriving so we can enter together?" No reply. It wasn't the silence that hurt. It was how normal it had become. She grabbed her clutch, tucked in her phone, a gloss, and one item that no one would expect. To be there, her sonogram photo, folded neatly into the back pocket. She would not announce her pregnancy tonight. She would not give him that moment. Tonight, she would give herself closure. The event was held at the Royal Crown Centre downtown, a high-rise ballroom with floor 2, ceiling glass windows, hanging crystal chandeliers, and more press than any year before. Naomi's driver opened her door with a polite nod. She stepped out into the buzz of flashbulbs and murmurs. Heads turned. Cameras clicked. The press called her name. "Naomi, over here." "Mrs. Rowan, any updates on the foundation launch?" She smiled softly, giving them nothing but elegance. Her fingers curled around the railing as she made her way up the gold-trimmed staircase. Inside, music floated. Laughter echoed. Wine glasses clinked. She scanned the room. No Tristan. Not yet. She was ushered toward the front table by the assistant, flanked by executives, board members, and corporate elites. Everyone smiled and nodded as if they hadn't heard the rumors. "Where's your husband, Naomi?" "He had a delay," she said, her voice steady. "He'll join soon." She kept smiling, but her eyes searched constantly, waiting for that door, dreading it, needing it, until the door opened, and in walked Tristan Rowan, a tailored black tux, crisp white shirt, clean-shaven jaw. His hand rested casually on the lower back of Cleo, who shimmered in red silk like a flame cutting through fog. They paused as the cameras flashed. Cleo smiled like she belonged there. And Tristan. He didn't even look for Naomi. Not once. Naomi sat still, back straight, shoulders squared. People turned. Some gasped softly. Others pretended not to notice. The whispers started. "Is that her? That's not his wife, is it? Why would he bring her here?" A woman across the table leaned in, her voice gentle. "Do you want to step out for a minute?" Naomi blinked. Once. "No," she said. "I'm fine." But inside, her heart didn't ache. It detached. That was the moment. Not when he ignored her. Not when he humiliated her. But when she realized this man would let her disappear in plain sight and not flinch. That kind of erasure was violent and unforgivable. She stayed the rest of the evening. She didn't cry. She didn't leave early. She didn't confront them. She fulfilled her duties, gave a short speech about the non-profit's new initiative, smiled when she was thanked, clapped when awards were handed out, all while Tristan and Cleo mingled like she didn't exist. By the time dessert was served, Naomi had made her decision. She would leave, but not like a victim. She would walk away with every ounce of grace he tried to bury. Back at the penthouse, the city lights sparkled outside their floor-to-ceiling windows. Naomi moved through the home quietly. The same home she had decorated with love, with thought, with care. The same home she had once dreamed of raising children in. She walked into their bedroom. The pillows were untouched. He hadn't returned yet. She opened her closet and pulled out 2 suitcases, the ones she'd always kept, just in case of a long trip. This time, The trip would be permanent. She filled one with clothes, the other with her journals, her photo albums, the positive test, and the prenatal vitamins she hadn't thrown away yet. She moved like someone who had been rehearsing this for months. And, in a way, she had. On his side of the bed, she left a single note. Don't worry about the cameras. This isn't a scandal. It's a beginning. For me. She placed her wedding ring on top of the folded paper, slipped her shoes on, and walked out. No driver, no calls, no audience. Just a woman choosing herself. She didn't go to a hotel. She didn't call her best friend. She didn't run to her parents. She changed her name back to her mother's maiden name, Walker, transferred money into a separate account, and caught a night train to Savannah. Why Savannah? Because it was quiet. Because she had visited once as a teenager and remembered the way the breeze moved through the mossy oaks. Because it wasn't New York, and she needed to breathe again. Her rental house was small, white walls, creaky floors, a view of the sea. The landlord didn't recognize her. No one did. Naomi Walker was nobody here. And for the first time, that was a gift. She took long walks on the beach, ate strawberries dipped in whipped cream, played soft music while she sketched. She slept better, laughed more, and whispered to her growing baby every night, "You were never a mistake. You were my freedom." Back in the city, headlines spun. CEO's wife Mia, as PR girlfriend, gained spotlight trouble in the Rowan marriage. Where is Naomi Bell Rowan? Tristan's PR team tried to spin it. They issued a statement. Naomi is taking time to focus on herself after a year of intense charitable work. He didn't know where she went. He called once. She didn't pick up. He texted, "We need to talk." She blocked him. She was done. Naomi built a new routine. She designed logos for small businesses, helped a local cafe redo their menu design in exchange for free pastries, read books under the sun, took prenatal yoga classes with kind strangers, and every time her belly grew, so did her peace. She didn't crave revenge. She didn't stalk Cleo's socials. She didn't read the tabloids. She healed. She reclaimed herself. And she began to fall in love with the idea of being someone's mother, not just Tristan's wife. The first time she felt her baby kick, she was standing in line at the grocery store. She froze, smiled, held her belly. People around her probably thought she was odd, just another pregnant woman smiling at herself. But inside Naomi, there was a moment of absolute clarity. I left just in time. Somewhere in New York, Tristan Rowan opened the door to their penthouse and found it empty. No scent of her vanilla candles, no sound of her slippers brushing the hardwood floor, no humming in the kitchen, only silence. He called the doorman, called her favorite spa, checked her calendar. Nothing. She was gone. He looked around the space like it had betrayed him. Then he walked into the bedroom and found the note. He read it, twice. He sat on the bed, picked up the ring, and for the first time since she left, he panicked. But it was too late, because Naomi Bell Rowan had stopped crying and started living. Tristan Rowan stared at the note for longer than he wanted to admit. He wasn't the kind of man who panicked. He solved problems. He delegated disaster. He buried headlines, pivoted companies, fired people who got in the way. But there was no press release that could fix this. No crisis manager could rewrite a story Naomi never wanted to publish in the first place. He sat on the edge of their bed in his tux shirt, sleeves rolled, collar undone. The ring she left sparkled in the dim lamplight like it was mocking him. He picked it up. Cold, weighty, final. This wasn't drama. Naomi didn't do drama. She was gone. The next 72 hours were a blur. He called her cell, disconnected. Tried her parents. They hadn't heard from her in weeks. Tried her assistant. But she'd resigned that morning with a short email. "Naomi won't be needing my services anymore. Thank you." He checked with her doctor. They couldn't disclose anything. HIPAA laws. He asked mutual friends. They didn't know, or pretended not to. It was like she'd vanished off the grid. The only trace she left behind was the scent of lavender and the silence that now stretched across their penthouse like a permanent fog. His PR team moved fast. They were used to cleaning up high-profile messes. One drafted a statement, "Naomi is prioritizing her mental health." Another suggested a social post of Tristan looking out a window in black and white, captioned, "Some seasons require silence." He rejected all of it. It wasn't about saving face. Not yet. It was about figuring out when he stopped seeing her, really seeing her. Because now he couldn't stop. He saw her in the morning tea she used to brew from scratch. He heard her in the quiet jazz playlists still saved on the home system. He noticed her handwriting on sticky notes in the fridge. "Don't forget to stretch, or your vitamins are in the top drawer." He'd forgotten every note she left. Until now. Cleo noticed the shift. She came by 2 nights after the gala, swinging a designer purse and wearing a scent far too strong for a weeknight. "Your penthouse is too quiet," she said. "You need to redecorate. Fresh energy. Let's knock out this wall, open it up." Tristan was pouring whiskey into a crystal glass, his jaw tight. "I don't want to redecorate," she pouted, still sulking over the wife thing. He didn't answer. She walked over, wrapped her arms around him. "Baby," she walked out. "That's on her. You didn't push her." But he had, not with his hands, but with his absence, his choices, his disrespect. He sipped his drink. Cleo's reflection shimmered in the glass, like a mistake caught too late. The next morning, he went to work. Same building, same polished lobby. But the boardroom felt colder. His CO founder, Marco, looked at him longer than usual before asking, "Is Naomi okay?" Tristan didn't respond. Marco sat back. "You know, she was always the steady one. Even when we didn't agree with your risk calls, she'd find a way to humanize them." Tristan narrowed his eyes. "You talked to her?" "She was part of the image, man. She made the Empire look like a home." That line stuck. The Empire looked like a home, but it wasn't one. Now it just looked like an empty fortress. Tristan started showing up to meetings late. He forgot his coffee, snapped at interns, missed deadlines. He tried texting Naomi again. A long message this time. "I know I messed up. I need to see you. Talk. Anything." It never delivered. He tried her old Gmail. The message bounced. It was like she had died, but somehow kept breathing somewhere he couldn't reach. He searched her name on social media. Every tagged post was dated months ago. Charity events, fashion brunches, smile after smile. Not a single clue of where she went. That made it worse. Cleo, meanwhile, took the silence as an opportunity. She started showing up at events as his partner. She dropped hints in interviews, sat in on meetings, made decisions like she had been invited. The board grew uneasy. Investors whispered. Articles began appearing. Rowan Empire wobbles as founder loses focus PR girlfriend oversteps. As Naomi Bell Rowan disappears. Where is the heart behind the brand? He tried to ignore them, until the yacht party. It was meant to be private. A client event hosted by one of the West Coast investors. Tristan didn't attend. He had a late-night call with an international partner. But Cleo went. And so did a tabloid photographer. The next morning, Tristan woke up to an email from his head of public relations with one subject line, "Damage control needed now." He opened the link. There was Cleo, in a gold bikini, wrapped around the waist of someone not him. The headline, "CEO's mistress spotted with rival investor." He didn't laugh. He didn't throw his phone. He just sat back and let the weight of everything settle. He had traded the woman who made his house a home for a publicist with zero discretion and expensive taste. He thought he'd upgraded. He realized he'd downgraded into chaos. He didn't call Cleo, didn't answer her texts. She showed up 2 days later, banging on his door. "You're really gonna ghost me now?" she shouted. "After all the heat I took for standing next to you?" Tristan opened the door, slowly. He looked at her, her lashes perfect, her mouth twisted, her tone sharp, and realized he didn't feel anything. No desire, no loyalty, no regret. Just silence. "Go home, Cleo," he said. She stared at him. "You think she's coming back?" He didn't reply. She scoffed. "You men never learn. You think the quiet ones stay quiet forever, but they always find their voice when it's too late for you to hear it." She turned on her heel and left. For once, he didn't chase. That night, he stood in the nursery Naomi had started setting up before she left. He hadn't noticed it before. But now, he saw the unopened boxes, the hand-painted color swatches taped to the wall, a list of baby names scribbled in pencil on the back of a receipt. Zaire, circled. Zaire. Was she? No. He looked around again. Sharper. There was a book titled Expecting While Alone in the corner, a bottle of unopened prenatal vitamins on the dresser. His knees buckled. She was pregnant, and he didn't even know. He had missed the signs, missed her glow, missed everything. His chest tightened. He sank into the glider chair Naomi had assembled herself. He remembered, snapping at her that day for leaving parts scattered across the hallway. She'd smiled, said, "One day, this chair will rock our baby to sleep." And now, he didn't even know if that baby had his name. The next morning, Tristan cancelled all his meetings. He shut off his phone. He sat in the nursery and stared at the list of names again. Zaire. If that was his child, if Naomi had carried their baby alone, he didn't deserve forgiveness, but he owed her truth. He stood up, heart racing, and walked to his office, opened his laptop, typed in every contact he could recall from Naomi's world before she vanished. Old art clients, small business partners, her yoga instructor. One of them had to know something. He had to find her, not for closure, but because he was no longer trying to get his wife back. He was trying to become someone worthy of her trust, if not her love. Savannah didn't just offer Naomi peace. It offered protection. Spanish moss hung like drapes from the oak trees. The air smelled like ocean mist and warm bread. Naomi lived in a white clapboard rental with blue shutters and a porch swing she used every morning before the world woke up. She'd traded headlines for hymns. Instead of being Mrs. Rowan, she became Naomi Walker, freelance designer, occasional church volunteer, and expectant mother. No one asked where she came from, and no one looked at her like she was half of a power couple gone missing. She liked it that way. Naomi took morning walks barefoot on the shore, ate peaches from the farmer's market, read books she never had time for, and finally breathed without pressure. Her body changed. Her spirit softened again, and the guilt she once felt for leaving Tristan, it melted every time she felt Zaire move. The locals adored her. Miss Donna, the elderly woman next door, started bringing over fresh cornbread on Sundays. Lena, the owner of the boutique cafe, asked Naomi to redo her branding and paid her in cash and free iced tea. Even the kids at the local church painted welcome messages on her sidewalk. Naomi wasn't rebuilding. She was rebirthing. No cameras, no reporters. No one asking what Tristan did this time. Just life, slow, kind, quiet. But the nights were hardest. That's when Zaire kicked most. That's when Naomi would sit with her hands on her belly and whisper, "I'm sorry your father didn't fight for us, but I promise I'll never leave you wondering if you were enough." She meant it. She had no plans to call Tristan, no plans to tell him about the baby, no interest in watching him try to fix things when the damage wasn't about repair, it was about respect lost. Still, some nights, her heart wavered. She'd glance at the empty space beside her in bed and remember the way his voice used to sound when he talked about the future. But then she'd think about Cleo in red silk, think about being invisible at a table meant to honor her, and her heart would harden again. She hadn't left in haste. She had left with clarity, and every day she chose peace was proof that she'd made the right decision. Zaire arrived on a Tuesday morning. Naomi had been folding laundry when the first wave hit. It wasn't dramatic like the movies, just a sharp jolt followed by an inner knowing, it's time. She didn't call anyone. She'd already prepared. A neighbor drove her to the hospital. She breathed through each contraction with a quiet strength the nurses admired. Most women scream, one said, gripping her hand. Naomi smiled. I did all my screaming before today. 6 hours later, Zaire was placed in her arms. Caramel skin, full cheeks, curled fists, but his eyes. Naomi stared. They were almond-shaped, deep, focused, just like Tristan's. Her heart thudded. She kissed his forehead. You're mine. That's enough. And for that moment it was. She didn't put a father on the birth certificate. She signed, Mother, Naomi Walker, father. No one asked questions. She went home 2 days later with her tiny miracle and a taxi full of donated baby items from the local women's shelter. No penthouse, no designer nursery, no staff waiting with catered meals. Just her, Zaire, and a new chapter. One she was writing word by word with lullabies, late-night feeds and whispered promises. Meanwhile, in New York, Tristan was unraveling quietly. Gone was the man who used to lead meetings with confidence and charm. He started showing up at investor dinners with glassy eyes, missed deadlines, skipped speeches. His assistant found him asleep in his office chair more than once, clenching a sticky note with Naomi's handwriting. Remember to breathe. He had started therapy. It didn't fix him, but it forced him to face the truth. He didn't just lose Naomi. He made her leave, and he had no idea how to get her back. One late night, he reached out to a woman Naomi once worked with, Camila, a boutique owner in the Bronx. I haven't heard from her in a while, she said, but she always talked about Savannah, said it felt like freedom. Tristan's heart skipped. Savannah? He opened his laptop, began searching listings, rental agreements, design gigs. He scrolled for hours, until one post stopped him. A digital flyer for a local cafe rebranding. In the bottom right corner, in small print, design by N. Walker. He stared at it for a full minute, got in touch with the cafe pretending to be a client, confirmed it. Naomi was alive, safe, working, in Savannah, and possibly not alone. He booked a flight that same day, didn't tell his assistant, didn't call security, just packed a bag, grabbed his keys, and left. He didn't even bring a gift. What do you bring to a woman whose peace you destroyed? Nothing. You bring honesty, humility, a willingness to stand in the silence you created. The plane landed in Georgia just past sunset. Tristan rented a car, drove aimlessly until he found the cafe. Closed. But he saw the logo. Clean, elegant, her style. She was here. He drove through downtown, past the riverfront, unsure of where he was going, until his stomach growled. He pulled into a side street and walked into a dimly lit cafe. Last-minute decision, not planned. He opened the door. The bell rang. The smell of cinnamon and almond milk filled the air. He looked up and froze. Naomi stood behind the counter, holding a baby. His son. He didn't need a test. Zaire looked just like him. Same eyes, same jaw, even the way he stared, calm, calculated, curious. Naomi hadn't noticed him yet. She was bouncing the baby gently, whispering something soft. Tristan took a step forward. The floor creaked. She looked up. Their eyes locked. The silence between them stretched, thick, weighted, full of unfinished sentences. Naomi didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She didn't run. She adjusted Zaire on her hip and stepped from behind the counter. Tristan opened his mouth, but nothing came. Naomi spoke first. Her voice was quiet but clear. You wanted freedom, she said. So I gave you mine. He looked at the baby, then at her. I didn't know, he whispered. You didn't want to, she replied. He swallowed hard. Is he yours, she said, not blinking. Zaire blinked, yawned. Tristan's knees nearly buckled. A moment passed. Naomi shifted the baby into her other arm. I don't need anything from you, Tristan. He nodded slowly. I know. She exhaled. Good. And with that, she turned and walked away, through a back door, into the night. leaving Tristan standing in the center of a quiet cafe, clutching the edge of the counter like it might hold him up. He stood there for what felt like hours. No one else entered. No one asked questions. Just him, and the realization that everything he ever wanted now existed in a world he no longer had access to. A world where Naomi had found peace and made a child feel loved. Without him, he didn't chase her. Not that night. He left the cafe quietly, drove back to his hotel, and sat in silence. For once, not trying to fix anything, just trying to accept what he broke. Tristan didn't return to New York, not right away. He extended his hotel stay in Savannah, not at a luxury suite or five-star resort, just a quiet business-class hotel with no frills. For the first time in his life, he wasn't thinking about stock charts, quarterly meetings, or his next acquisition. All he could think about was the baby, Zaire, his son, and Naomi, who had looked at him like a stranger in that cafe, not angry, not emotional, just firm, composed, and far away. He hadn't lost her the night she walked out. He'd lost her long before. That realization haunted him more than anything. He returned to the cafe 2 days later. She wasn't there. Only the older woman who ran the place during off hours, Miss Gwen. Tristan approached the counter, unsure of what to say. "Is Naomi here?" he asked gently. Miss Gwen didn't flinch. "She's not working today." "I see. I'm not trying to make trouble." Miss Gwen wiped her hands on a towel, then looked him in the eye. "I know who you are." He tensed. "Then you probably know She cut him off. "What I know is she came here with nothing but a baby on the way, and a heart too bruised to speak of. What I also know is she didn't blame you, not once, not even in silence." Tristan dropped his gaze. Miss Gwen softened. "You want coffee?" He nodded. "Please." She handed him a mug. Black. No sugar, no questions. Naomi saw him before he saw her. He was standing outside the small white church she walked past every Saturday. Zaire was in her stroller, fast asleep, wrapped in the blue blanket Miss Donna knitted last month. She didn't pause. She kept walking, but Tristan stepped forward. "Naomi," he said. She turned her head slightly. He didn't move closer. "I'm not here to take anything. I just wanted to see how you're both doing." She looked down at Zaire. "He's sleeping well, eating like he owns the place." Tristan let out a breath. "I'd like to help in any way." Naomi didn't answer right away. Then, "You never asked what I needed before." Her words weren't laced with bitterness, just truth. "I know," he said, "but I'm asking now." She studied him. "What do you think I need, Tristan?" He opened his mouth, closed it. "I don't know, but I'd like to find out." That she didn't expect. The next week, he showed up at the community food pantry. She was stacking boxes, wearing jeans and a loose cotton top, hair tied back in a wrap. Simple, effortless, beautiful. Tristan didn't speak. He grabbed a pair of gloves and started unpacking crates beside her. She glanced at him. "You're not built for this." He smirked. "You'd be surprised." They didn't talk much that day, just worked side by side. For once, he didn't rush anything, didn't try to fix or persuade. He simply stayed. That was new. Zaire turned 4 months old when Naomi finally let Tristan hold him. They were at the park. The baby was fussing, tired but too alert to sleep. Naomi sat on the bench and rocked the stroller slowly. Tristan hovered nearby, unsure if he should ask. Naomi looked up. "You want to try?" He blinked. "Me?" She nodded. He stepped forward, hands awkward. "You'll need to show me how." Naomi stood. "Support the neck. Don't bounce too hard. Keep your tone calm." He took Zaire gently, cradled him like a delicate puzzle. Zaire looked up, wide-eyed, blinked, then yawned. Naomi smiled. "He doesn't hate you." Tristan chuckled. High praise. From that day forward, Tristan came around more. He didn't invade. He didn't assume. He just showed up. Consistently. He changed diapers, burned formula, fumbled lullabies. Naomi didn't praise him, but she noticed. One day, she passed him a folded paper. He opened it. It was a parenting class flyer. He looked at her. "You want me to go?" "No," she said. "I want you to want to—" He stared at it, then nodded. "I'll go." 3 weeks later, he surprised her. Zaire's stroller had a broken wheel. Naomi had mentioned it casually. That same afternoon, Tristan showed up with a new one. Sleek, compact, adjustable. Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Too much?" "Probably. But thank you," she added quietly. He didn't press, but he smiled. They started walking together on Sunday mornings. Naomi pushed Zaire while Tristan matched her pace. They talked, not about the past, not yet, but about the small things. Books, community events, her design work. He asked about the non-profits she once dreamed of launching. She asked about how he felt now that he was away from the noise of his empire. "It's strange," he said once. "Everything felt so loud in New York. Here, I hear myself think." Naomi glanced at him. "Maybe that's what you feared most all along." He didn't deny it. One evening, it rained. Tristan was on Naomi's porch, holding Zaire while she wiped down groceries. Zaire giggled as raindrops tapped the porch railing. Tristan watched him. "He laughs like you." Naomi looked up, surprised, touched. Tristan turned to her. "Thank you for letting me in." She hesitated. "Then you earned the right to stand here. You haven't earned everything else." He nodded. "I don't expect to." They stood in silence, rain falling gently around them. Zaire cooed in Tristan's arms. Naomi wrapped her arms around herself. And for the first time in months, the air didn't feel heavy. Naomi didn't trust easily anymore, but she couldn't ignore the shift in Tristan. He didn't come bearing gifts. He came with presence. He didn't bring solutions. He brought sincerity. And while her heart remained guarded, a small part of her started wondering, could people truly change? Could someone once blind to your value learn to see you again, this time fully? She didn't have answers yet. But she had time. And Tristan, this time, was willing to wait. Zaire had just drifted to sleep on Naomi's chest when she heard a quiet knock on her front door. She moved gently, careful not to wake him, and looked through the peephole. Tristan stood there, holding a brown paper bag and wearing a sheepish expression. She opened the door just enough. "Hungry?" he asked. Lena packed extra from the cafe. Naomi studied his face. He looked tired, but not the kind of tired that came from stress. It was the kind that came from effort, from trying. She stepped aside. "Don't wake him." "I won't." They sat at the kitchen table, eating quietly. Zaire slept in his bassinet near the window, a soft lullaby playing on Naomi's phone. Tristan unwrapped a sandwich. Naomi sipped her tea. "I didn't know he liked music," he said, nodding toward the melody. "He falls asleep faster with it," she replied. "I used to sing to him in the womb." Tristan paused. "What song?" "Sweet Baby James, but I changed the lyrics." He smiled. "Can I hear it sometime?" She didn't answer, but she didn't say no. After dinner, Tristan didn't leave right away. Naomi noticed. "You waiting for something?" He cleared his throat. "Just thinking about how much of your life I never bothered to learn." She looked up. "I knew your favorite wine, your preferred designer, your go-to vacation spot, but I didn't know you hummed when you drew, or that you loved peaches more than chocolate. I never asked what made you feel seen." Naomi listened without speaking. "I was building a future that didn't have room for a present. I made you lonely while calling it love." The air thickened. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said. "I just want to be honest." Finally, she didn't respond right away. Then softly, "You were the loudest silence I ever lived with." That was all she said before standing to check on Zaire. Days passed. Tristan kept showing up, not with flowers but with groceries, not with promises, but with presents. He fixed the leaky faucet, built a bookshelf Naomi had ordered months ago, but never had the energy to assemble. They didn't live like a couple, but they existed like a rhythm, separate yet in sync. Naomi noticed how Tristan's eyes softened when he held Zaire, how he read parenting blogs, asked questions, took notes when she shared tips. One morning, he came by with a binder. "What's this?" "A co-parenting plan," he said. She blinked. "Boundaries, schedules, financial support." "No. Pressure. I just want structure for you." And for him. Naomi opened it slowly. Each page detailed, respectful. She looked up. "You've done your homework." "I'm still learning," he said. It wasn't a romantic gesture. It was a responsible one. And somehow, that meant more. Naomi started drawing again, late at night when Zaire slept. Tristan saw one of her sketches left on the porch. It was a profile of Zaire, mid-laugh. He didn't comment. The next day, he dropped off a set of new pencils. No note. She didn't mention it, but she used them. One Sunday afternoon, they took Zaire to the park together. The air was warm, flowers in bloom, the sound of children laughing in the distance. Tristan carried Zaire in the chest harness, slightly awkward but trying. Naomi walked beside them, arms crossed, eyes forward. They sat on a bench while Zaire dozed in the harness. A couple walked by, smiling. "Beautiful baby," the woman said. Naomi smiled politely. Tristan beamed. The woman added, "First-time parents?" Naomi froze, looked at Tristan. He didn't answer right away. Then softly, yes. Naomi didn't correct him. Later that day, back at the house, Naomi tucked Zaire in his crib while Tristan waited on the porch. When she came out, he was staring at the sunset. "Do you think we could ever be friends?" he asked. Naomi sat down beside him. "I don't know," she admitted. "There was a time I would have died for your love. Now I'm just trying to remember who I was before I chased it." He nodded. "I understand. I don't hate you," she added. That surprised him. "I thought you would," he said. "I did," she whispered. "But hate takes energy I need for healing." That evening, she let him stay a little longer. They shared tea, talked about Zaire's first smile, his favorite toy, the way he kicked one sock off every night like a little protest. It wasn't romantic, but it was soft. It was honest. And that was a start. A few weeks later, Naomi took Zaire to a church picnic. Tristan showed up unexpectedly, carrying folding chairs and store-bought lemonade. Naomi arched a brow. He shrugged. "Just trying to earn my stripes." She didn't fight it. They sat together, laughing at Zaire's messy attempts at mashed bananas. He handed her a napkin without asking. Later, she caught him rocking Zaire gently under a tree, humming off-key. She stared at them from a distance. For a moment, the bitterness loosened its grip. She didn't smile, but she didn't walk away either. That night, Naomi stood over Zaire's crib, watching him sleep. Tristan stood behind her, silent. "Do you regret anything?" she asked quietly. He didn't hesitate. "Everything I did to lose you." She turned to him, and for the first time in months, she believed he meant it. Tristan didn't ask for her heart. He asked for her presence. Naomi didn't offer forgiveness, but she offered space. And in that small, fragile space between what once was and what might become, something new grew. Respect. Maybe even something like hope, not because of what they had been, but because of what they were becoming. One quiet moment at a time. Naomi hadn't planned on writing to Tristan again. Not after everything. Not after months of building her life brick by brick. Quiet, firm, private. But that evening, after Zaire fell asleep early and the rain tapped gently against her window, she pulled out her journal. Instead of sketching or listing groceries, she wrote his name at the top of the page. Tristan. Her pen hesitated, but her thoughts didn't. "I once begged for your attention with my silence. I smiled through humiliation. I gave my peace to preserve your image. And when I finally left, it wasn't because I didn't love you. It was because I couldn't love you more than I loved myself." She paused, then kept going. "You didn't just lose me. You lost the quiet cheerleader who clapped for your every win. The woman who remembered your calendar better than your assistant. The wife who forgave late nights and cold dinners until she couldn't. She stopped writing. She wasn't bitter. She was clearing out what was left. Zaire would one day ask questions. She needed to make peace with the answers. She folded the letter, didn't seal it. The next morning, Tristan showed up with groceries. Bananas, eggs, baby wipes. Nothing fancy, just thoughtful. Naomi opened the door in her robe, hair messy, eyes still heavy from sleep. He raised a bag. Didn't want you running out again. She stepped aside. You're early. Figured I'd beat the rain. He walked into the kitchen like he'd done it 100 times, placing items in cabinets he remembered without asking. Naomi leaned on the counter. You're getting familiar with this place. He turned. I'd like to be, but only if you let me. She said nothing. But her silence wasn't cold. It was cautious. And that was progress. Later, while Zaire napped, they sat on the porch. Tristan held his coffee like a confession. Naomi rocked slowly in her chair. You ever think we could have done it differently? He asked. She looked out toward the street. I think about a lot of things. But rewriting the past doesn't raise a child. He nodded. You deserved better. Naomi turned to him. No, I deserved honesty. Not perfection. Just someone who saw me. Tristan met her gaze. I see you now. Naomi didn't smile, but she didn't look away. That night, she opened her journal again. She added to the letter, now you show up, not as the man I married, but as the one I hoped you'd become. She didn't know what it meant. She didn't expect romance, but she was starting to believe in second chances, not always at love, but at truth. And that felt enough for now. The next weekend, the town hosted its spring market festival. Naomi dressed Zaire in a soft green jumper and carried him on her hip through the flower stands and artisan booths. Tristan joined them halfway through. He wore jeans and a plain black tee, nothing like the suited man she once followed through red carpets. They moved together easily, not holding hands, but not distant. Locals greeted Naomi. Some smiled at Tristan. No one asked if they were back together. That part didn't matter. What mattered was the way Tristan wiped Zaire's mouth after his first bite of strawberry jam, or how Naomi passed him a bottle without speaking, knowing he'd understand. That afternoon, they found a quiet corner of the park. Zaire sat between them on a blanket, babbling to himself. Naomi looked at the child between them, half of her, half of a man she once loved so fiercely it burned. And yet, here they were, still standing, still trying. Tristan reached for Zaire's tiny hand. He's the best thing I've ever been part of. Naomi didn't answer. He looked at her. I'll never be able to undo what I did or what I failed to see. But if you'll let me, I'll keep showing up. Naomi traced her finger along the edge of the blanket. You already are. That night, Naomi didn't write another letter. She didn't need to, because for the first time, she wasn't carrying the weight of what happened. She was simply living through what was becoming, and it was quiet, and it was slow, and it was real. Spring warmed into early summer, and life moved without announcements. Naomi didn't label what she and Tristan were. She still lived alone, still paid her own bills, still made every decision for Zaire, but Tristan kept showing up. And not just for the easy parts. He held Zaire during teething cries. He wiped down the kitchen after breakfast without being asked. He even joined a small parenting circle hosted by a group of local fathers, none of whom had billionaire titles or penthouse views. He blended in, and Naomi noticed. One morning, while folding laundry, Naomi found one of Tristan's shirts tucked into the pile, not because he brought it, because she'd washed it after a messy lunch and forgot. She stared at it. It was the same brand he wore the first time they kissed, same smell, but the man who wore it now felt different. Quieter, intentional. That weekend, Naomi caught a cold. Not serious, just enough to drain her. Zaire still needed his bottle, still needed bouncing, still fought naps. Tristan arrived to find her lying on the couch, eyes half closed. "You okay?" "Just tired," she said, voice rough. Without a word, he took Zaire into his arms and kissed the boy's forehead. "You rest. I've got him." Naomi didn't argue. She drifted into sleep to the sound of Tristan reading softly from a children's book in the next room. And for the first time in a long time, she felt safe letting go. When she woke up, soup was on the stove. The house was quiet. Tristan was rocking Zaire with one hand and replying to an email on his phone with the other. Naomi sat up slowly. "You didn't have to stay." He glanced at her. "I didn't want to leave." She didn't reply, but something inside her softened again. Later that week, they walked Zaire along the pier. The sun was low, water gently moving beneath the wooden boards. Naomi paused to lean over the railing. Tristan stood beside her, quiet. "He's changing," she said. "His eyes are more curious now. He watches me closer." Tristan nodded. "He watches you like you're his whole world." Naomi looked down. "There was a time I wished you'd looked at me like that." "I know." They stood in silence. Then Tristan added, "I see you now, and I see the damage I did not seeing you then." She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. The next evening, Tristan found Naomi sitting on the porch, journal open on her lap. She didn't hide it when he stepped out. He didn't ask to read it. She closed it gently. "I used to write letters I never sent, about me, mostly. Some were angry, some were just sad. And now? I don't write them anymore." Tristan exhaled. "Because you've moved on? Because I don't need closure from you. I found it on my own." He looked at her. "Still, I want to earn something back, even if it's not love." She tilted her head. "Like what?" "Your trust." Naomi didn't speak for a long moment. "Then, that's harder than love, you know." "I'm okay with that." Zaire's first word was "Mama." He said it while sitting in his high chair, peas all over his cheeks. Naomi's heart burst, even as she laughed at the mess. Tristan clapped softly, eyes warm. The second word came a week later, "Da." Not quite Dada, but enough to make Tristan freeze. He looked at Naomi. She met his eyes. "He knows you," she said. That one line carried everything. She didn't say "he is yours." She said, "He knows you." That was more powerful. Tristan started spending more weekends in Savannah. He rented a modest house nearby, 2 bedrooms, 1 small yard, a grill he never learned to use properly. Naomi helped him decorate it. "Why not just move back in?" he asked once, half teasing. She smiled. "Because I'm not moving backwards." He nodded. "Fair." They left it there. One Saturday, after the farmer's market, Naomi walked Zaire home while Tristan carried the bags. As they neared her door, he paused. "I was thinking of writing Zaire a letter." Naomi turned. "What kind?" "Something for him to read when he's older. About the mistakes I made, and the man I hope to become." She watched him. "No excuses?" "None. Just truth." She nodded slowly. "I think that's a good idea." That night, Tristan sat on his couch, pen in hand, paper blank. He didn't know how to begin, but he started anyway. "Zaire, I wasn't ready when you came into the world. I missed your first breath, your first cry, your first everything. And there's no fixing that. But I'll never miss another moment if I can help it." He wrote for hours, because for the first time, this wasn't about Naomi. It was about becoming the man his son deserved. No more speeches, no more polished apologies, just action. Naomi didn't read the letter. She didn't need to. She saw it in how Zaire reached for Tristan. She saw it in the silence, how it no longer hurt. She saw it in herself, how she could look at the man who once broke her and say, "You've changed. And so have I." Naomi hadn't heard the name Cleo in months, not in conversation, not in headlines, not even whispered in passing. Savannah had become her sanctuary, a place where memories were refiled as lessons and not wounds. But the past has its own timing, and it rarely knocks gently. It started with a voicemail. Naomi was folding Zaire's onesies when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. Then came the voicemail notification. Curious, she played it on speaker while folding. Hi, Naomi. This is Cleo. I'm not calling to cause drama. I don't even expect a response. But there are things you deserve to know, and I owe you more than silence. I'll be in Savannah for a few days. If you want to talk, I'm staying at the Lanford Inn. The message ended. Naomi stood frozen, a tiny sock in one hand. Cleo, in Savannah, and wanting to talk. She didn't call Tristan, not immediately. Instead, she took Zaire for a walk to clear her thoughts. The wind was crisp, trees blooming with soft color. Locals waved. Someone handed her a cup of lavender tea from the cafe. But Naomi didn't smile. Her mind was looping. Why now? What does she want? Should I go? And underneath all that, another quiet question. Do I care? By the time she returned home, Zaire had fallen asleep in the stroller. Naomi sat on the porch, hands resting on the handle. She stared at nothing for a long while. Then, she picked up her phone. Tristan's voice was tight. She called you? Yes. What did she say? Just that she's here. That she wants to talk. I'll handle it. No, Naomi said calmly. I'll handle it. A pause. You sure? I'm not scared of her, Naomi replied. But I think she's scared of something. Tristan didn't argue, but Naomi could hear the tension. Will you tell me if you go? He asked. I just did. That was enough. Naomi arrived at the Lanford Inn the next morning. She wore a soft blue top, jeans, and no makeup. She wanted to walk in like herself, not like the woman Cleo once tried to erase. The front desk gave her the room number. She knocked once. The door opened slowly. Cleo looked different, less polished, thinner, older. Her eyes were tired, her nails unpainted. She wore a hoodie over leggings, not the bold red silk Naomi remembered. For a second, they both just stood there. Then Naomi said, You wanted to talk, so talk. Cleo stepped aside. The room smelled like citrus and sadness. Cleo gestured toward the small dining table. Naomi sat. Cleo remained standing, pacing slowly. I didn't come to cause anything, she began. I'm not here for Tristan. I haven't seen or spoken to him in months. Naomi stayed silent. Cleo continued. After everything blew up, I left the city. I thought being with a man like him would make me important. Turns out, being around that much power just made me invisible too. She looked at Naomi. I envied you, she said. You had his last name, his home, his attention. At least I thought you did. I didn't realize I was helping him destroy the only person who actually believed in him. Naomi finally spoke. I wasn't surprised he chose you in public. I was surprised at how easy it was for you to stand there and watch. Cleo sat down across from her. I didn't know you were pregnant. Naomi blinked. Neither did he. Not then. Cleo nodded slowly. That makes it worse. She pulled something from her purse. A small flash drive. This has recordings, she said, of meetings, conversations. Stuff Tristan didn't know I kept. I was going to use them, thought they'd help me climb higher after things ended. Naomi frowned. Why give it to me? Because I realized, you're the only one who cared more about being whole than being seen. Cleo pushed the drive across the table. I'm not asking for anything. I just want out of the shadow I helped create. Naomi looked at the flash drive, then at Cleo. I don't need proof anymore, she said. I lived the truth. Cleo nodded, swallowing hard. I'm sorry. Naomi stood. I accept your apology, but forgiveness? That's not something I give for free. That's something life grants when you change. She walked to the door. Before she left, she paused. For what it's worth, I hope you find your peace. And then she was gone. She didn't tell Tristan about the flash drive. Not yet. Some things don't need immediate decisions. That evening, she tossed it into the back of her drawer. She wasn't ready to revisit old fires. She was too busy growing flowers. Zaire woke up fussy that night. Naomi rocked him gently, humming her version of Sweet Baby James. As he settled against her chest, she whispered, "You'll never have to wonder what truth looks like. I'll live it in front of you." And she would, because even if the past tried to knock again, Naomi knew who she was now. Not just a woman who left, but a woman who survived, who healed, who stood. Some people come into your life to break things. Others come to remind you what's worth rebuilding. Naomi had finally learned the difference. Tristan noticed something was off the moment he arrived the next morning. Naomi was quiet, not cold, not distant, but heavier, like her mind was holding something she wasn't ready to share. Zaire was giggling in his high chair, face messy with banana mash. The house smelled like cinnamon oatmeal, but Naomi's eyes didn't sparkle the way they had yesterday. He took a seat across from her at the table. "You okay?" She nodded once. "I'm fine." Tristan studied her face. Naomi hated that word, fine, which meant she wasn't. He leaned back. "Do I need to know something?" She paused, wiped Zaire's chin, then looked him in the eyes. Cleo reached out. His shoulders stiffened. "When?" "Yesterday." "Why?" Naomi stood and walked to the sink before answering. "She said she owed me the truth, or at least part of it." He sat forward. "Did she threaten you?" "No," Naomi said quickly. "She didn't come to start anything." She apologized. Said she was done chasing noise. Tristan looked down at his hands. "I never thought I'd hear that name again," he said quietly. "She gave me something," Naomi added. He looked up. "What?" Naomi dried her hands on a towel and turned back to him. A flash drive. Recordings from back then. Calls. Conversations. Tristan's face paled. "She kept those?" Naomi nodded. "She said she wanted to use them, once, but now she wants to let go." He exhaled slowly. "Did you listen?" "No." "Why not?" She walked over and sat down beside him. "Because I already know who you were, and I know who you are now." That hit him hard. He wasn't used to grace like that. Naomi continued, "I don't need to replay what broke me. I'm not trying to reopen wounds I already healed. But what if it's worse than you remember?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Then I'll still be the woman who survived it." Tristan stared at her, speechless. She wasn't just stronger. She was free. That afternoon, he took Zaire to the park, while Naomi stayed home. He sat on a bench, watching the boy crawl awkwardly on a blanket, laughing at birds and babbling like he knew what he was saying. A local dad approached. "Your boy?" Tristan smiled. "Yeah." The man grinned. "You can tell. He's got your eyes." Tristan nodded, then looked away. His eyes. His legacy. The same eyes that once looked past Naomi without seeing her. He made a silent vow. Zaire would never feel that kind of blindness from him. When they got home, Naomi was on the porch. She looked peaceful again. Zaire squealed when he saw her. She scooped him up and kissed his cheeks. Tristan handed her the diaper bag, then hesitated. "I thought about what you said. About not needing proof." She glanced at him. "But I think I do." Her brow lifted. "Why?" "Because I need to confront the version of me I never held accountable." She didn't stop him. He walked inside, opened her drawer where the flash drive sat untouched, and slid it into his pocket. "I won't ask what's on it, but I'll carry it." Naomi nodded. "That's your choice. And if I fall apart listening to it..." She looked at him, calm. "Then you'll finally understand how I rebuilt myself." Tristan didn't open the files that night. He waited until the next morning. He sat at the desk in his small rental. Sunlight streamed through half-open blinds. The air was still. He took a breath and clicked play. Cleo's voice came first. Laughter, teasing, manipulation dressed as charm. Then his own voice, detached, impatient, arrogant. Naomi's name came up. He flinched. He heard himself talking about business dinners, public image, distractions. He didn't speak of her like a wife. He spoke of her like a task. By the fourth file, his hands were shaking. By the sixth, he couldn't breathe. He slammed the laptop shut, sat there for 10 minutes, then wept into his hands. Later that day, he showed up at Naomi's door. She opened it and paused. His eyes were red, voice hoarse. I listened. She nodded. And I hated the sound of me. Naomi let the silence hold. I was so obsessed with protecting my future, I didn't realize I was destroying the one person who made it worth anything. She stepped aside to let him in. They sat at the kitchen table. Tristan reached across and placed the flash drive in her hand. I don't want it. She looked at him. I already burned it, she said. He blinked. Her lips curved slightly. I told you, I don't need it. Tristan closed his eyes. Then whispered, "Thank you." She shook her head. "Don't thank me. Just keep becoming the man you were too blind to be the first time." That night, Naomi sat alone while Zaire slept. She didn't write. She didn't draw. She just breathed. Because some wounds don't heal with revenge. They heal with responsibility. And some apologies aren't said with words. They're proven in silence, day after day. If you've ever loved someone who only saw your worth after walking away, or if you believe people can change, but it takes more than words, tell us in the comments, should Naomi give him another chance? Have you ever walked away and found yourself again? Drop your thoughts. We read every single one. And if you're still with us, like this video to show love for stories that heal. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that peace is always worth protecting. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more powerful, soul-stirring storytelling. Because the stories we tell are sometimes the ones we've lived. It started with a note, handwritten, folded neatly, left on Naomi's porch beside a takeout box from her favorite Thai restaurant. She found it after putting Zaire down for his afternoon nap. The food was still warm. The note read, "No pressure, just dinner, no speeches, no expectations. I'd like to cook next time, but I figured I should survive takeout first." Tea. Naomi stared at it for a long moment, then laughed softly to herself. She didn't text him back, but she didn't return the food either. That Friday, she texted, "You want to try cooking? Bring groceries." The reply came in under a minute. "On my way." Tristan showed up with 3 bags. 2 full of groceries, 1 with a recipe printed out and highlighted in yellow. Naomi leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. "You really highlighted a recipe?" "I'm not trying to poison you," he said, stepping past her. Naomi followed him into the kitchen. Zaire was in his bouncer seat, gurgling happily. Tristan crouched to kiss the boy's cheek. "You ready to watch your dad fail gracefully?" Naomi smiled under her breath and started pulling out a pan. Dinner was simple: garlic butter shrimp over pasta, steamed broccoli and sweet tea. Naomi handled the seasoning while Tristan managed the stove. "Don't burn it," she teased. "I read the blog post. I'm a changed man. That's not how butter works." He grinned. "But it might be how healing does." She glanced at him. He was trying, not with flowers or gifts, but with time, with humility, with action. They sat at the table after putting Zaire to sleep. The lights were dimmed. No candles. No soft music. Just comfort. Familiarity. Tristan twirled pasta on his fork and broke the silence first. "You know I was going to propose again once." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "You mean after you already had me?" He nodded. "After you left." She leaned back. "What would that have changed?" "Nothing," he admitted. "It wouldn't have fixed it. I just thought maybe a new ring would say what I couldn't." She didn't look away. "I didn't need another ring. I needed you to hold the first one like it meant something." Tristan set his fork down. "I know. Now I do." They finished dinner in quiet. Not tension. Not resentment. Just truth, hanging in the air between them. Naomi poured tea for both of them. Tristan sipped, then said, "You ever think we could make it work again?" She stared at her cup. "I think sometimes the question isn't whether something can work. It's whether both people are willing to build it with new bricks." He didn't speak. So she added, "And right now, I'm still laying mine." Before he left that night, he paused at the door. "Thanks for dinner." Naomi looked up. "Thanks for showing up." He stepped out, closed the door behind him, and for the first time since he started coming around again, Naomi locked it slowly, leaned against it, and exhaled. The next week, she found a small envelope tucked inside Zaire's diaper bag. It was addressed to Zed. She opened it cautiously. Inside was a short note. "Just in case I mess this up again, you should know. You were wanted. You were worth it. And your mama is the strongest person I know." There was no signature. But she knew the handwriting. Naomi folded it, placed it in Zaire's baby book, and sat quietly beside the crib that night. She didn't cry. She just smiled and ran a hand across her son's curls. He'd never know abandonment, because this time, the man who'd once failed them was showing up without being asked, without asking for anything back, and that was something she could live with. Zaire turned 10 months old the same week Naomi agreed to let Tristan watch him alone for an entire afternoon. It wasn't a formal conversation, just a quiet, mutual nod that he'd earned the trust. Naomi needed time to herself, time to think, breathe, reset. She spent it walking along the marsh trail just outside town, taking deep breaths of the humid air, letting her sandals sink slightly into the dirt path. It was the first time in months she wasn't thinking about diapers or feeding schedules or court documents or her own bruised heart. When she returned, the house smelled like baby powder and fried plantains. Zaire was fast asleep. And Tristan? He was in the living room, reading a parenting book with his feet kicked up, looking as comfortable as if he'd always lived there. "You cooked?" she asked, surprised. He looked up. "No promises on the seasoning." She laughed. "What possessed you? You said you liked plantains once. Thought I'd try." She walked past him to the kitchen. The plate was covered with foil, still warm. She uncovered it, took a bite. "I've had worse." He grinned. "I'll take that as high praise." Dinner wasn't planned that night, but it happened anyway. They sat at the table again, Zaire asleep nearby, kitchen lights dimmed. No pretense, no dressing up. Naomi picked at her food. "You're building consistency," she said quietly. "Trying to. It's working." Tristan didn't beam or boast. He nodded. "I'm not perfect. I never asked for perfect." He reached for his glass. "But you asked for presence." She looked at him. "And you've been giving it." He placed the glass down. "You miss us?" She hesitated. "Sometimes. Do you think about us again?" "I do." They sat in silence. Then Naomi stood and picked up the plates. Tristan followed her into the kitchen. They moved like they used to, quiet cooperation, no stepping on toes. When she reached for the dish soap, he gently took it from her hand. "Let me." She stepped back, watched him rinse and dry, watched him take his time, like everything in him had slowed down. When he finished, he turned around. She was still watching him. Neither of them spoke. He stepped forward, close but not assuming. "Naomi." Her breath caught. He reached up, touched her cheek gently with the back of his hand. She didn't move, but she didn't lean in either. "You don't have to," she whispered. "I'm not trying to get anything," he said. "I just—" He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he kissed her, softly, slowly, carefully. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't selfish. It wasn't a promise. It was a question. Naomi didn't answer with words, but she didn't pull away. She let herself feel the moment, not as a wife, not as a mother, not as a woman recovering from betrayal, but as herself, just herself. And for the first time in a long time, that felt safe. When the kiss ended, they stood still. No explanations, no awkward laughter. Tristan gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, then whispered, "Good night, Naomi." She watched him leave. This time, she didn't lock the door right away. She stood there, hand on the knob, wondering what tomorrow would hold. And for once, that thought didn't terrify her. Naomi didn't pretend the kiss hadn't happened. She didn't overthink it either. It had been slow, honest, and real. No pressure, no promises. Just two people standing in the same kitchen, no longer held hostage by what broke them. But the next morning, everything felt a little more fragile. Zaire woke early, babbling and pulling at his stuffed elephant. Naomi dressed him in a soft grey onesie and walked him to the porch, letting him enjoy the breeze. The sky was soft with morning light. Birds chirped somewhere near the trees. Naomi sat on the swing, Zaire resting on her lap. She replayed the night. Tristan's touch had been so careful, too careful, like he knew one wrong move could send her right back into the walls she'd taken so long to lower. She didn't regret it, but she wasn't rushing anything. Not now, not again. She kissed Zaire's head gently and whispered, "Slow is good." Tristan texted mid-morning. "Breakfast? Just me, you, and the mess Zaire's going to make." She smiled, then typed, "Come by, no syrup." He throws it. Tristan arrived 20 minutes later with blueberry pancakes, turkey bacon, and a smile that tried not to say too much. Zaire lit up the moment he saw him. Naomi noticed. They sat on the floor, letting the baby crawl between them. He babbled in both directions, like he didn't want either parent to feel left out. Tristan handed Naomi a plate. "You slept okay?" Eventually, he nodded. "Me too." She took a bite. "You always bring food now. Easier than flowers. More useful too." Zaire giggled as syrup stuck to his fingers. Naomi reached for a napkin. Tristan beat her to it. They both laughed softly. No tension, no awkwardness. But the air between them wasn't empty either. It was full of questions they hadn't spoken yet. Later that day, Naomi took Zaire for a walk. Tristan offered to come. She said yes. They strolled past the old bookstore, down the stretch of quiet streets with hanging ferns and rocking chairs. Locals waved. One elderly couple called out, "Beautiful baby." Tristan smiled. Naomi nodded politely. When they reached the bench near the fountain, Naomi stopped. "I come here a lot." Tristan looked around. "It's peaceful." She sat down. "It's where I decided I wouldn't hate you." He turned toward her slowly. "I figured you'd never forgive me." "I didn't," she said. "Not at first. I burned with it for weeks. But then I looked at Zaire, and I couldn't keep holding fire in my chest while raising him in love." Tristan sat beside her, quieter than usual. "Thank you for doing that. For both of us." Naomi nodded. "I didn't do it for you. I did it for me." He accepted that, because it was the truth. And finally, he respected that most of all. The weeks that followed weren't loud. There were no declarations, no grand makeup trips or over-the-top gifts, just presents. Tristan came by 3 times a week, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with books for Zaire, once with a toolkit after noticing her door hinge creaked. Naomi didn't ask him to do these things. He didn't ask for credit. He just showed up, quietly making himself useful, something he never used to do. Naomi wasn't quick to trust it. Her walls weren't gone, just lowered enough to breathe. Zaire crawled more now, pulled himself up on furniture, tried to talk. "Mama," he said one afternoon, reaching up from his crib. Tristan was in the doorway. He didn't interrupt, just watched. Naomi smiled and picked up her son. "Yes, baby?" Zaire turned to look at Tristan. "Da." It wasn't clear. It wasn't a full word. But Tristan's hand gripped the doorframe. Naomi didn't correct Zaire. She didn't label the moment. She just held her baby and let Tristan feel it however he needed to. That night, Naomi sat alone at her kitchen table, her journal open, pen in hand. She wrote, "He's not the same man. But I don't know if I'm ready to meet this new one fully. I know what it costs to give your heart without a guarantee." She paused, then added, "But I also know what it costs to walk away from a love that's trying to come back stronger." The next morning, Tristan asked if he could take Zaire for a walk alone. Naomi hesitated. Tristan noticed. "Only if you're comfortable." "I am," she said slowly. "Just bring wipes. Lots of them." He smiled. Of course, watching them walk off, Naomi felt something unfamiliar. Relief. Not fear. Not hesitation. She trusted him. With Zaire. With the moment. Maybe not her heart. Not yet. But with their child. Yes, that was a start. When they returned, Tristan had sand on his shirt and a story about Zaire refusing to give up a stick he found. Naomi laughed harder than she had in months. "You're getting the full parent experience now." "I'm earning it," he replied. She noticed the wording. Not claiming, not assuming, earning. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was navigating this alone. Not fully. The sun was setting when Naomi stood at the sink, rinsing bottles. Tristan leaned against the doorway. "Naomi." She looked over. He stepped forward. No pressure, just presence. "If this never turns into anything more, I'll understand," he said quietly. "But I want you to know, being around you in Zaire feels like living for the first time, not performing." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she said, "Let's not rush this. I'm not. Then we'll see where the days take us." Tristan nodded, and in that silence, something steady grew between them. Not the old love. Something better. Something rebuilt. Naomi sat on the porch swing one Sunday morning, Zaire napping inside. The town was quiet, except for the soft rustling of oak trees and the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog. A gentle breeze brushed across her cheeks, the kind that didn't ask for attention but offered peace anyway. Tristan arrived with 2 coffees and a brown paper bag. "I stopped by that bakery you like, the one with the orange scones." Naomi raised a brow. "You remembered? I wrote it down the first time you mentioned it." That surprised her. She opened the bag and broke off a piece of scone. "You planning to win me back with carbs?" "I'm planning to win you back with consistency," he said. Naomi didn't reply right away. She took a sip of the coffee. It was made exactly how she liked it, hazelnut with a touch of almond milk, no sugar. He sat beside her, but not too close. Enough to be present, not enough to invade. "You never used to remember details like that," she said softly. "I didn't think I needed to. I thought being the provider was enough." She looked out at the street. "It wasn't." "I know." They sat in silence for a moment, not heavy, but honest. Then Naomi asked, "Do you ever regret choosing her?" Tristan's answer was immediate. "Yes, not because she hurt me, but because I hurt you." Naomi looked down at her hands. "I don't think I would have left if you'd just apologized right away." "I didn't know how," he admitted. "I thought love meant control, power, image. And now? Now I know it means showing up when it's hard. Listening even when I feel defensive. Protecting, not just in public, but in private too." Naomi nodded, her throat tight. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "But I'll be here if you ever want something again." She looked at him. Really looked. "I'm not angry anymore. That's a relief. But I'm still healing. I'll wait." Naomi's eyes met his. "I don't want you to wait. I want you to live. And if one day our lives cross again in that way, then let it be because we chose it fully, not out of guilt, or fear, or pity." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded photo. A candid shot, Naomi on the beach, barefoot, laughing, Zaire in her arms. Sunlight, dancing on their skin. "I took this last week," he said. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to remember the way you both look when you're happy." Naomi took the photo. Her fingers trembled. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful. As a mother, as a woman, as yourself." She blinked back emotion. "You don't have to say all that," she whispered. "I want to." That was the difference now. He didn't try to impress. He tried to mean it. The savannah sunset stretched in honey-gold layers across the sky as Naomi placed Zaire in his crib. The child, now babbling and curious, held onto her finger a moment longer than usual before slipping into sleep. It had become their quiet ritual. Bath, lullaby, then one whispered prayer. Let him grow with peace, not pain. Downstairs, the porch creaked. She didn't flinch. These days, the sound didn't bring anxiety. It brought awareness. Tristan had started showing up on Thursdays and Sundays without fail, never asking, always waiting. She walked down the stairs, barefoot, arms crossed gently over her chest. When she opened the door, he stood with a bag of groceries, not from the gourmet shop, but from the local market she favored. "I brought the oat milk," he said. "The one Zaire doesn't spit out." Naomi stepped aside, letting him in without words. He placed the bag on the counter, careful not to disrupt the baby monitor beside her cookbook. He didn't stay long. He rarely did. But before he left, he asked quietly, "Do you ever think about the day we met?" Naomi leaned against the counter, surprised. "You mean when you spilled coffee all over my sketchbook?" Tristan chuckled. "You cursed under your breath. I'd never heard you say a bad word before." "I thought you were arrogant," she replied. "You were. Still are." He took that. No defense, no charm, just silence. She tilted her head. "Why ask?" He took a breath. "Because I think I stopped seeing you after that. Somewhere along the line, I replaced you with a version of what I wanted marriage to look like. Events, appearances, assets." Naomi said nothing. Tristan stepped back, grabbing his keys. "I'm not here for pity. I just thought, if we ever try again, I don't want to love a version. I want to see the whole of you." Naomi let that sit in the room. She didn't rush to respond. That night, when the door clicked shut, she didn't feel hurt. She noticed. A week later, Naomi received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address, but she knew the penmanship. Inside was a single page. "I miss your friendship more than I miss your body. I miss your quiet strength, the way you saw me when I didn't deserve to be seen if all I'm allowed to do is cheer for you from 2 blocks away. I'll do it forever. No promises, no manipulation, no ring, just truth." She placed the letter on her nightstand next to a framed photo of her mother. "You told me. A man's apology comes without excuses," she whispered. "I think he's finally learning." On Saturday, they bumped into each other at the farmer's market. Tristan was with Zaire. He'd offered to take him for an hour while Naomi ran errands. She was skeptical at first, but agreed. When she walked up, she found Zaire in a baby carrier on Tristan's chest, his little hand grabbing the strap like it belonged to him. "He didn't cry," Tristan said, proud. "We got apples. And a wooden train." Naomi eyed the toy. "You bribed him." He shrugged. "Whatever works." She smiled, and it caught them both off guard. "Come eat with us," he said. "I packed lunch. I bet you burnt the bread again." "Probably. But I brought napkins this time." They sat in the park under a tree feeding Zaire bits of banana and watching people walk dogs and fly kites. No declarations, no pressure, just moments. That night, Naomi sat at her dining table, watching Zaire play with his new train. She thought about the kind of man she wanted raising her son. Not a rich man, not a man with connections, but a man who listened, who showed up. Tristan wasn't perfect, but he was present. Naomi picked up her phone, typed a message, then deleted it. She looked at Zaire, now giggling. Instead, she walked out the door and across the street. She knocked. Tristan opened the door in sweats, holding a burp cloth and looking half exhausted. Naomi stared at him a second, then said, "He'll need a stable rhythm. And eventually, questions will come. We need to figure out answers together." He stepped aside. No kiss, no embrace. But it was the first real step. Naomi stood at the kitchen counter, chopping carrots with a quiet rhythm. The house smelled of rosemary and lemon, and the soft hum of Zaire's babbles filtered in from the living room. It was a normal Sunday afternoon, calm and familiar. But when she glanced out the window, what she saw wasn't normal. Tristan, not in a suit, not with bodyguards. Just Tristan, kneeling in the yard with a bottle of formula in one hand and Zaire in his lap. Zaire's tiny fingers gripped the edge of his father's shirt, his eyes focused on the bottle. Tristan's posture was stiff at first. This was new, but he kept trying. Naomi watched through the window as the baby took a few sips, then pushed the bottle away with a small pout. Tristan smiled, wiped the boy's chin, and tried again. Patient, gentle. It hit her, not like a wave, but like a steady tide rising inside her. He was showing up. Again, and again. That evening, She didn't ask questions. She simply stepped onto the porch, leaned on the rail, and said, "You're not just visiting, are you?" Tristan looked up at her. No. He didn't say more. He didn't need to. That week, he rented a modest 2-bedroom cottage 5 minutes from her street. No penthouse, no skyline view, just a porch swing and a baby gate. Naomi didn't stop him, but she didn't help him either. He learned on his own how to sterilize bottles, how to read Zaire's tired cues, and how to rock him to sleep during teething nights. Neighbors started to notice. The older couple next door brought over extra baby wipes one afternoon. A teenage girl offered to babysit. The cashier at the local grocery store said, "He's yours, huh? Looks just like you." Tristan just smiled, nodding. "Yeah, he does." Naomi saw all of it. Quietly, she didn't praise him. She didn't correct him either. She was watching something rare, a man learning how to father, not from duty but from love. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Tristan knocked on her door holding a shoebox. She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Something I kept." Inside the box were photos, ones she didn't know he had, a selfie from their college library, a note she once slipped in his wallet before a big pitch, a dried flower from their anniversary trip to New Orleans. "I lost my way," he said, "but I never let go of these." Naomi looked at the memories like ghosts. She hadn't thought of those moments in years. "You didn't lose your way," she replied, voice low. "You just chose a road that didn't include me." He nodded, accepting it. "I'm trying to choose again." They didn't hug. They didn't fall into each other's arms. But something opened. She started letting him help more. Grocery runs, pediatric visits, middle-of-the-night calls when Zaire wouldn't settle. And on one stormy Thursday, when the power went out and Zaire started crying from the thunder, she called him. Not because she was afraid, but because her son needed both comfort and consistency. Tristan arrived in 10 minutes, wet and breathless, holding a battery-powered lantern. Zaire calmed the second he held him. Naomi watched from the doorway as father and son swayed together in the dark, and for a flicker of a second, just a flicker, she remembered why she once believed in forever. Days passed. One morning, Naomi walked Zaire to the local park. Tristan was already there, sitting on a bench with a stroller and a baby bag beside him. He looked up, surprised but hopeful. She sat beside him without a word, handed him Zaire's sun hat. "I didn't bring snacks," she said. "I did," he replied, pulling out a soft banana pouch and oat bars. Zaire babbled between them. They watched the kids play. "I never saw this life coming," Tristan said softly. "I did," Naomi answered. "But it wasn't mine then." They sat in silence, the good kind. The kind that says, "We're not done. But we're not rushing either." And when Zaire giggled loud, both of them smiled at the same time, like parents, like something starting, not over, but new. Naomi adjusted Zaire's bib, her fingers brushing gently against the soft fabric as she watched her son devour his applesauce. He was growing so fast. Too fast. Just a few weeks ago, he was barely sitting up on his own. Now he was clapping along to songs and throwing toys when she wasn't quick with the next bite. Across the kitchen, Tristan stood by the sink, drying bottles. No one had asked him to do it. He just did. Naomi didn't say anything, but she noticed. Later that night, while Zaire napped in his crib, Tristan stayed behind after dinner. Naomi opened a bottle of ginger beer, poured 2 glasses, and sat on the porch steps. He joined her without asking. "I've been thinking," he said, stretching his legs out. "That sounds dangerous," she replied, teasing lightly. He smiled, a soft chuckle escaping him. "I'm serious." "Okay. I'm listening. I missed the birth. I missed the first laugh, the first step. I don't want to miss anything else." Naomi stared ahead, eyes locked on the quiet street. "You missed them because you chose wrong. Not because you didn't have a choice." "I know." He didn't defend himself. "I'm not asking you to make up for lost time," she continued. "I'm asking you to earn your place here. Not with words, with presence. His gaze dropped to the porch boards. I want to be here. For him, for you. Naomi sipped slowly. Then be consistent. Keep showing up. Don't expect applause. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't cold. It was grounding. That weekend, they took Zaire to the library's toddler story time. Naomi expected to sit alone, maybe behind the circle of mothers, but Tristan surprised her. He sat cross-legged beside Zaire, clapping offbeat and laughing too loud at the puppet show. People stared. A few whispered. But Naomi didn't care. Zaire had both parents beside him. That's what mattered. Afterward, they walked through the farmer's market. Naomi carried a bag of produce, while Tristan held Zaire, bouncing him gently. A woman selling handmade candles smiled at them. Beautiful family, she said. Naomi blinked. She opened her mouth, ready to correct her, but Tristan beat her to it. Thank you, he said with quiet pride. Naomi didn't argue. Maybe for this moment, it didn't need correcting. That evening, after the dishes were done and Zaire was tucked in, Naomi walked Tristan to the door. He turned before stepping out. I didn't think you'd let me in again. I haven't, she said honestly. Not all the way. He nodded. Then I'll keep standing at the door until you do. Naomi didn't reply, but she didn't close the door either. Days passed. They began doing life side by side, not as lovers, but as CO parents learning a new rhythm. She cooked. He did dishes. She read Zaire bedtime stories. He carried him to the crib. It felt safe, like walking through fog toward a sunrise. One night, after a long day, Naomi came down with a fever. Her body ached. Her skin burned. She barely made it to bed after tucking in Zaire. She didn't call anyone. She didn't have to. Tristan showed up. He knocked once, then let himself in with the spare key she hadn't taken back. He saw her curled up on the couch, pale and sweating. I'll take care of it, he said gently, setting down a grocery bag of ginger tea, soup and Tylenol. He fed Zaire. He bathed him. He rocked him to sleep. Then he returned to the couch and sat beside her, placing a damp cloth on her forehead. Naomi opened her eyes, weak but alert. Why are you here? Because you needed someone, he whispered. And I've finally figured out I want to be your someone again. Her eyes softened. You say that now. But what happens when things get hard again? He reached for her hand, holding it gently. Then I stay, I learn, I adapt, I fail, but I show up again. For the first time, Naomi didn't pull away. Maybe it was the fever. Maybe it was the months of effort. Maybe it was the way he'd loved their son, openly, clumsily, faithfully. Whatever it was, something thawed inside her. She closed her eyes, his hand still in hers. For once, she allowed herself to rest, not because she was exhausted, but because she wasn't alone. Naomi hadn't expected visitors, especially not her. Zaire was playing on the rug with his building blocks, humming to himself when the knock came. Naomi opened the door and froze. It was Tessa, the woman Tristan had chosen, the woman he left her for. Tessa looked different, thinner, her eyes hollowed with something Naomi couldn't name. She wore a tailored blazer, but her expression held no confidence. I won't stay long, Tessa said softly. I need to say something. Naomi didn't respond right away. She stood firm, one hand still on the doorknob. Zaire peeked from behind her leg, curious but cautious. May I? Tessa asked, gesturing to the living room. Naomi hesitated, then stepped aside. Tessa entered quietly, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She sat at the edge of the couch, her back straight, as if she were bracing for judgment. Naomi sat opposite her, arms crossed. Tessa looked at Zaire with something like regret in her eyes. He looks like Tristan. He is Tristan's, Naomi replied evenly. Tessa nodded. I know. Silence followed. Naomi didn't offer tea. She didn't ask what Tessa wanted. Tessa finally broke the silence. I thought I won, she said. Naomi tilted her head slightly. I thought taking Tristan meant I won, Tessa continued. voice low. He left you for me. I got the house, the attention, the promises. But I never had the man. Naomi didn't flinch, but her throat tightened. I kept waiting for him to be present, Tessa admitted. For him to see me. But his mind, it was always somewhere else. Or with someone else. Me, Naomi said flatly. Tessa nodded again. I thought you were the past. I see now. You were always the home. Naomi didn't reply. Her silence said enough. I'm not here to fight for him, Tessa said. I left. For good. Naomi exhaled through her nose. And you came here to what? Apologize? Yes. And to say, I understand now. Zaire climbed onto Naomi's lap, sensing something tense. She held him close. I hope you both find peace, Tessa said, standing. As she walked to the door, she paused. Whatever you decide, just make sure it's your choice. Not guilt, not history, yours. Naomi didn't answer, but the weight of the conversation lingered long after Tessa left. That night, Naomi sat outside on the porch. Zaire was asleep, the baby monitor softly blinking beside her. Tristan joined her without a word. He sat close, the quiet stretching between them. She came, Naomi said, not looking at him. I know, Tristan replied. You do? She called me. Told me what she planned to say. I didn't stop her. Naomi turned to face him. Why? Because you deserve to hear the truth from her, not through me. Naomi studied his profile. He wasn't the man who left her. Not anymore. There was weight behind his words now. Stillness in his presence. I'm tired, Tristan, she said finally. I know. I've spent so long proving I could raise Zaire on my own, that I didn't need anyone. You didn't. But I wanted someone, she whispered. He turned to her then, his voice low. I want to be that someone. Naomi looked away. It's not that simple. I know, he said again. But I'm not asking for simple. I'm asking for a chance. She closed her eyes. The wind brushed against her skin, cool and steady. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was holding up the sky alone. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. And for now, that was enough. The next morning, Tristan was already in the kitchen when Naomi walked in. He was making pancakes, Zaire's favorite. The smell of vanilla and warm batter softened the air. Naomi paused in the doorway, watching him flip a pancake with surprising ease. You remember how he likes them? She asked. Tristan glanced over his shoulder, smiling. Golden brown. With strawberries. No syrup. Naomi walked in slowly. You really did listen. I always listened, he said quietly. I just didn't know how to act on what I heard. Zaire came running into the room, hair messy from sleep, but his face lit up when he saw Tristan. Daddy. Tristan crouched and opened his arms wide. Zaire launched into him. Naomi froze, breath caught in her throat. Good morning, little man, Tristan said, hugging him tightly. You hungry? Zaire nodded excitedly. Tristan lifted him onto the counter. Then help me finish, Chef Z. Zaire giggled. Naomi leaned against the wall, watching the scene. This was what she'd dreamed of when she first found out she was pregnant. A kitchen filled with laughter. A man who stayed. After breakfast, Zaire was busy drawing at the table, crayons scattered everywhere. Naomi and Tristan stepped onto the small porch, needing to talk. He wants you in his life, she said, arms folded. And I won't deny him that. I want that too, Tristan replied. But I need more than visits and breakfasts, she added. I need consistency, stability, not just for him, for me too. Tristan nodded. I know. And I've been rebuilding everything I destroyed. Therapy, business restructure. I even moved out of that mansion. I'm renting a modest house across town. Naomi blinked. You? Downsizing? Tristan smirked. Turns out, money isn't what makes a place feel like home. She looked at him for a long moment. So what does? He stepped closer, voice steady. Presence, accountability, forgiveness, love. Naomi's heart ached. She wanted to believe him. Every word sounded honest, but scars weren't healed overnight. You left me when I needed you the most, she whispered. I carried that pain every day. I know, he said, eyes heavy with guilt. I abandoned you. I believed lies. I made choices that cost me everything. She turned away, fighting tears. Tristan gently touched her arm. Let me earn your trust back. Let me be here. No conditions. No rush. Naomi wiped her eyes. This isn't just about second chances, Tristan. It's about building something that can survive storms. I'm not asking for a shortcut, he said. I'm asking to walk the hard road with you. She met his gaze. For the first time, she saw not the man who failed her, but the man trying to rise again. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. Over the next few days, Tristan kept his promise. He showed up on time, helped with errands, joined Naomi and Zaire for dinner without overstepping. One evening, Naomi watched from the hallway as Tristan read a bedtime story to Zaire. His voice was soft, animated, filled with warmth. Zaire clung to every word, his tiny fingers holding onto Tristan's sleeve. Naomi felt a lump in her throat. This was healing, not in grand gestures, but in the small, steady moments. Later that night, Tristan lingered at the door. I'll go, he said, but if you need anything, I'm a call away. Naomi nodded, her voice low. Thank you. He hesitated. Naomi, one day, if you're ready. She didn't let him finish. She stepped forward and hugged him, not as a wife, not as a lover, but as someone who finally saw effort in a man who once vanished. Tristan held her with quiet reverence, not gripping, not rushing, just present. I'm proud of you, she whispered. He stepped back, eyes glassy. I'm proud of you. The door closed behind him softly. And for the first time in years, Naomi didn't feel abandoned. She felt seen. Savannah's golden morning light spilled across Naomi's modest porch. She sat on the swing, wrapped in a soft cardigan, her legs folded, a warm cup of tea between her hands. Zaire played just beyond the porch steps, stacking blocks and giggling at a wandering squirrel. The small house had become a sanctuary. Simple, quiet, safe. No photographers outside. No board meetings interrupting dinner. No eyes watching her every move. Inside the house next door, Tristan adjusted the buttons on a baby blue onesie. Zaire had outgrown most of his newborn clothes, and Tristan had started, helping with wardrobe changes after volunteering to babysit once a week. He'd gotten the hang of it, mostly. Naomi glanced over the fence. Tristan's side door opened. He stepped out with a small box of books under one arm and a folded stroller in the other. Their eyes met across the yards. A nod passed between them. No words. Just something quiet that had been growing steadily over the past few months. Naomi still hadn't moved in, and Tristan hadn't asked. But he was present, every week, every milestone. He didn't bring roses. He brought stability. Zaire waved at him, babbling a half-formed dada before returning to his squirrel chase. Naomi's chest tightened slightly. She had never taught Zaire to say that. But children sense things. Tristan walked over to the low fence. I finally unpacked all the baby books, he said. Naomi raised an eyebrow. That only took you, what, 6 weeks? He smiled. I was overwhelmed. I never knew there were books just about sleep regression. She chuckled. It's real. And you're just getting started. A pause. I was thinking, he said, trailing off. Next weekend is the annual Children's Festival at the park. Would you want to go with me and Zaire? Naomi's fingers tightened around her teacup. She tilted her head. As in, family outing? Only if you're comfortable. She didn't answer right away. Not because she didn't want to go, but because everything lately had felt so tender. Like holding a glass ornament in the rain. I'll think about it, she said finally. Tristan nodded, not pushing. He'd learned the hard way that earning trust required silence as much as words. Later that afternoon, Naomi sat at her desk with Zaire napping nearby. She pulled out an old leather-bound journal, the same one she had taken when she left their penthouse. She hadn't written in it for weeks. She flipped through pages. April 4th. I feel invisible, and I'm tired of trying to matter. May 19th. He doesn't even see me at events anymore. Cleo laughs too loudly. June 2, 2 pink lines. I should be happy, but all I feel is fear. June 15th. Left him. Didn't look back. She exhaled and turned to a blank page. October 12th. He visits more than he speaks. He holds Zaire like he means it. I don't trust easily, but I watch. I see the effort. I don't want another heartbreak, but part of me wonders, could this be a new beginning? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Tristan stood there, holding a small lunch bag. I made grilled cheese, he said. Didn't burn the bread this time. Thought you might want a break. She hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered, placed the lunch bag on the counter, and peeked toward the bassinet. He's still got that tight grip when he sleeps, Tristan whispered. Naomi folded her arms, leaning against the kitchen wall. Why are you doing this? He turned to her. Because I lost you once when I thought money could buy comfort. Now I know peace isn't bought, it's nurtured. He stepped closer. You don't owe me anything, Naomi. I know that. But if there's still a window, even a small one, I want to be the man who stands beside you, not above you. She didn't speak, didn't move. He backed away, respectful. I'll leave the sandwich here. Naomi watched him walk out, and for the first time, she didn't feel the ache of abandonment. She felt the weight of choice. The children's festival buzzed with energy. Laughter rang through the park as families gathered around colorful booths and balloon stands. Naomi stood near the cotton candy cart, holding Zaire in one arm, watching as he clapped at the dancing clown. Tristan stood beside her, holding a juice box and a small diaper bag slung across his shoulder. His other hand hovered close to Naomi's lower back, close but not touching. He waited for cues now, always waited. Do you remember this park? Naomi asked, her voice soft over the sound of music. Tristan looked around. You mean the tree over there where I first told you I loved you? Naomi smiled faintly. You had barbecue sauce on your shirt. He chuckled. Still the most honest thing I've ever said, even covered in ribs. Zaire squirmed in her arms. Tristan stepped forward instinctively, and Naomi let him take the baby without a word. Zaire nestled into his shoulder like it was the most natural place in the world. For a moment, Naomi let herself breathe it in. The picture was so different from the life she once knew. Quiet joy instead. Of silent tension, shared laughter instead of forced dinners. They sat down on a nearby bench, Zaire between them, nibbling on bits of fruit from a tiny container. Tristan cleared his throat. I want to ask you something, Naomi. She turned toward him slowly. He reached into the diaper bag and pulled out a folded paper. It wasn't a ring box, not flowers, just paper. I drew this up. It's not legally binding, but it's a promise. One I'm offering you. She opened it. It read, I promise to show up when I say I will. I promise to parent, not purchase. I promise to give you space, but never make you feel alone. I promise to ask before I assume, and I promise that if love finds us again, it'll be earned, not demanded. Naomi blinked, the page trembling in her hand. I know what I broke, he said gently, but I also know what we've built since then. No rush, no pressure, just an open door. Naomi folded the paper and placed it in her purse. I never stopped loving you, Tristan, she whispered. But I needed to love myself enough not to beg for respect. His eyes glistened. And you've taught me what it means to give it freely. They sat quietly. Zaire leaned into Tristan's chest and drifted off. Naomi looked out at the park, then back at the man she had once left without a backward glance. He wasn't a perfect man. But this man, this version of him, was a present one. She spoke again. I'm not promising anything today. I know. But if we're doing this, we raise Zaire together, and you never let your pride be louder than your presence. I won't. She paused. And if I ask for space, you'll give it? Even if it kills me. They both smiled. A breeze lifted the edge of Zaire's blanket. Tristan gently tucked it back in. Naomi stood, brushing off her jeans. She extended a hand. "Let's go home," she said. He took her hand, not to lead, but to walk beside her. If this story moved you, if Naomi's strength or Tristan's growth reminded you of someone, or if you believe in second chances that are earned, not bought, then don't keep this story to yourself. Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with someone who might need it today. Like it if it made you feel something. And subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more powerful tales that uplift, inspire, and leave you thinking long after the story ends. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.